Kia ora and welcome to the Niggly Niche Cast. I am Diggity Doodah Doc, also known as Mr. Slippers the Slipper. And I'm here by myself again early in the week to talk through all rugby league matters. We had a New Zealand Aotearoa Warriors loss to the Brisbane Broncos, 2-8. We've got some Warriors reserve grade footy. The Warriors defeated Blacktown Seagulls 20 points to 6. Don't really care about the result, but a couple of interesting notes to touch on there. We've got wider NRL chit-chat and maybe some representative footy if I can be bothered at the end. As always, support the Niche Case. We are on Patreon, and the link is everywhere to our Patreon. Support us on Patreon. Try hook you up with some goodies when we can via the Patreon. Otherwise, subscribe, like, rate, review, however you consume this Niche Cast glorious content. Support us on that platform. Support us anywhere you see us, and just help us continue to pursue this Kiwi sporting dream that we are on. Not much about the Warriors' loss to the Brisbane Broncos was dream-like. Oh, maybe dream-like, because some of us do dream about the Warriors being a gritty, rugged, grinding football team with substance and attitude and mental fortitude and determination, a good culture, a good attitude that the Warriors have never had. All of that was pretty much on display versus the Broncos. The Warriors came out and against a very strong Brisbane Broncos team. I couldn't preview this on the old Niche Cast because I was a bit sick with the flu. But when I wrote about this preview, it was all about the Warriors forward pack versus the Broncos forward pack, because this Broncos forward pack is pretty fucking mean, bro. They do a good job. They got great players, Payne Haas, Matt Lodge, Tavita Pangai Jr. If your edges are Alex Glenn and Matt Gillett, you're doing bloody well. Joe Ofahengawe as well. Fantastic Brisbane Broncos forward pack. Warriors forward pack, we don't really know what they're up to. We don't know how good they are, how good they could be. Interesting late change to this game was Adam Blair starting, and he ended up playing 64 minutes, I believe, at prop, which was an interesting wrinkle, and it kind of set the tone for the type of display that the Warriors were going to roll out. They were since we've complained so much about these intangible elements of the Warriors, their attitude, determination, culture, work ethic, 1%ers, all those things, we always complain about those things. Those are the lazy stereotype things to fall back on when you're talking about the Warriors. Yet all that was on display against the Brisbane Broncos. The Warriors pretty much went toe-for-toe with the Broncos in the middle of the park. They did their best to contain the Broncos forward pack. You're never going to really contain them. And the thing about the Broncos forward pack, so young, can be a bit inconsistent, really big energy one week and then takes a dip the next week. So unless the Broncos forward pack is having an off night, you're never really going to truly keep a lid on what the Broncos forwards can do, because there's just so many good forwards in that Broncos pack. But the Warriors went toe-for-toe with them. They did their best to contain them. They maintained parity and even playing field with the Broncos forward pack, which is a bloody good effort, if you ask me, for the Warriors. And that was all. It's not just the forward pack, it's the guys out on the edges shutting down ball movement. It's Tuivasa Sheck organising matters and different players out on the edges as well. Everything about the Warriors was at a required level of energy, intensity, and attitude to contain the Broncos, which is a very, very good sign from the Warriors that they were able to get through an 80-minute performance against the Broncos and really zone in on doing the job on the Broncos in terms of continuously showing up on inside shoulders, trying their best to play the ball down, winning the tackles, making all your tackles. Like Adam Blair had 44 tackles with no missed tackles, so that's a good thing from Adam Blair. Lachlan Bear had 43 tackles and a couple of missed tackles, so there was lots of tackling done in the middle of the park. And then what won the game from the Broncos was, for a brief moment, none of that was present. So you had Lingy Sau playing a few extra minutes because Jazz Tavanga was injured. Lingy Sau conceded a couple of penalties, and then he was defending as an A defender, which is the first defender off the ruck, against Anthony Milford. Lingy Sau didn't push up hard enough, and Milford, if you against the big tired forward, Milford's going to win that battle all the time. But I think it was Carl Lawton didn't quite chase hard enough from the inside, which left Roger Tuivasa-Sheck isolated. So you've got a little dip in effort, a little moment, a brief moment of a fringe Warriors forward who was perhaps playing a few more minutes than he should have, getting exposed by Anthony Milford. If that is the only way the Broncos could score their points, their try, that's not the most terrible sign in the world. So that all of that sums up a pretty strong effort, especially defensively. There were good attacking signs up until good ball, which is kind of in the 20-metre area. There are really good signs everywhere except the 20-metre area with the footy from the Warriors, and then a little moment, a little lapse in concentration saw the Broncos score and thus win the game. And then what was the issue was the Warriors' attack. The Warriors attacked plenty of opportunities down the Broncos' end, but the attack wasn't potent. The attack was slow, stuttering, and yeah, it was just a bit tame. But again, I'm not overly concerned by that. There are a couple of factors as to why. Like, if the Warriors' attack is their weak point and the most concerning thing at this stage, oh, good. That's no worries at all, because the issue for the Warriors is ensuring that the attitude and effort and intensity is there, and we can build on the attack. We can suss out a few attacking things. And Roger Tuivasa-Sheck had one tackle bust in this game, for example. Like, that's just a stat that just sums up everything about this game for me from a Warriors perspective, is that the Warriors are never really going to win a game if Roger Tuivasa-Sheck has one tackle bust. This is a dude who breaks tackles for fun. Like, he is the man. And I think in my debrief, I wrote about Tuivasa-Sheck just being a bit off. Tuivasa-Sheck was just a bit off against the Broncos. He had 18 runs for 146 metres. Again, one tackle bust, but it was just where Tuivasa-Sheck was. This is also a stylistic thing, so it's not in relation to this direct effort from Tuivasa-Sheck against the Broncos. I do think Tuivasa-Sheck just lacked a bit of energy, a bit of pizzazz, a bit of panache, and that can be the difference between the Warriors winning and losing a game when they are putting so much energy and effort into the defensive area of their game. And this is a specific game because Cody Nikorima was effectively shut down. That's another factor here in the poor Warriors attack. Cody Nikorima was kind of shut down by the Brisbane Broncos, his old club, who know all his tendencies, who know all his little towels and how he likes to play footy. So if there's any team that could shut down Cody Nikorima, it's going to be the Brisbane Broncos. The Warriors' attack wasn't terrible. Isaac Luke got out of dummy half. I think he had 6 runs for 60 metres. Nikorima got out of dummy half, 2 runs for 29 metres, something like that. You had decent kicking games from Nikorima and Blake Green. They had a better split. This time you had Nikorima rolling through 5 kicks. Blake Green had 16 kicks, so at least Nikorima had a few more kicks to offer the variety. Blake Green's bombs out to Kemamalo were a bit off the mark. They kind of curled away from the try line, and so Kemamalo either had to stay still or move backwards away from the Broncos' try line to follow the arc of the footy. They weren't kind of landing on the try line with Kemamalo bursting onto the footy to catch it and score. So Blake Green's kicking into the corner was slightly off, but for every mediocre Blake Green kick, there's one of his grubbers which curls. He can curl these grubbers both ways. He forced repeat sets and he forced errors from guys picking up the footy. So I'm not one of these people who hates on Blake Green's kicking game. I think it's just doing a job, and it's kind of skillful the way he can bend those grubbers, which is nice. But yeah, those kicks to Mamalo were a bit off. All of that is to say that the Warriors' attack wasn't terrible. They had little moments, they had breaks, they had bits and pieces. They just lacked the extra bit of energy, and I think so much energy and focus was put into the defensive style of the Warriors footy that it took away from their attacking focus or attacking threat, and much of that is present in Roger Tuivasa-Sheck's performance, which was just a dip in energy, just a dip in funk from Tuivasa-Sheck that could be the difference between the Warriors winning and losing a game. But another little issue was we had a lot of Blake Green running. We had a couple of dummy half runs as well, and Tuivasa-Sheck isn't around the ruck. Tuivasa-Sheck is playing out wider on the edges when the Warriors are in good ball, or it's not so much about good ball, it's just when the Warriors are working downfield, Tuivasa-Sheck isn't there to following the ball to get an offload, to get a pass. So every time Blake Green ran the footy, he was alone. And you remember back to when the Warriors played the Dragons, Carl Lawton ran the footy a whole lot. He made these mad breaks, but he's alone. That should be Tuivasa-Sheck bursting up every single time, but he's not there. And that's a stylistic thing. That's Tuivasa-Sheck's probably just taken a mad hit up and he's tired. Or Tuivasa-Sheck's out on an edge where he spends a lot of time out on the edges, which is all good because if Tuivasa-Sheck's one-on-one out on an edge, he's got footwork and he's going to fuck you up. But I do want to see Tuivasa-Sheck just bursting onto a pass, especially when Blake Green had 15 runs and 15 dummies. So it was a pretty clear intent from Blake Green to run the footy. It was his dummy step. He's a bit slow, but he makes an impact with his runs. And Blake Green had more runs than Cody Nikorima, which is absolutely ridiculous. He didn't have more meters, but he had more runs than Nikorima. Tuivasa-Sheck just wasn't there. He wasn't there pushing up in support, and that's something to watch out for moving forward with how the Warriors attack, because I would like to see Tuivasa-Sheck just buzzing around the footy a bit more. Stylistically, also selection-wise, through the middle, you had Adam Blair and Lachlan Burr doing a very similar role. Blair played 64 minutes, I think, and Burr played 44. Blair played 67 minutes, And they were just tackling their hearts out. They were covering. Adam Blair made 2 tackles. He was part of two tackles that forced 2 repeat sets. That's Adam Blair down to a T. 44 tackles, no missed tackles, pushing up to force repeat sets and so on and so forth. But these Lachlan Burr and Adam Blair, their strength isn't making 10 metres a run, quick play the ball, setting things up. That's what the Warriors were kind of lacking, but having Blair and Lachlan Burr in the middle of the park helped to slow down what the Broncos were doing. So it's kind of a balance. It's like, what kind of forward do you want to do a job in this game? The Warriors were forced into this way of playing because Ignatius Parsi's absent, and then Jazz Tavanga only played 8 minutes. So the Warriors lacked a bit of variety in their middle forward group. They didn't really struggle making meters as such because Kemamalo, Fusatu'a were fantastic. But again, you didn't have Roger Tuivasa-Sheck averaging 10 meters per run. He was well down on his usual efficiency and output. Adam Blair and Lachlan Burr pretty much, it's not even worth mentioning their running stats because that's not what they're about. So don't worry about that. You just had that, you lacked that punch from Ignatius Parsi in conjunction with Bunty Afoa, the footwork of Mao, Jazz Tavanga bouncing around everywhere. Bunty Afoa was fantastic. He runs it hard, he runs it straight, but that's kind of all he does. Bunty Afoa, 11 runs, 150 metres, so over the 10 metre per run mark, which is good. But Bunty Afoa just runs it straight. Ignatius Parsi runs it hard, and he's got this little late right foot step at the line, which is hugely beneficial because it gets him in between defenders. Quick play the ball. Jazz Tavanga bouncing around all over the show, forcing repeat efforts because you've just made a tackle. He's cutting in behind the ruck. He's running these weird angles, forcing repeat efforts. Then you can't play the ball down, and then you can't defend out on the edges. So all these pieces come together, and when a couple of pieces are missing, you can see how the Warriors' attack is diminished because they don't have the tempo, they don't have the flow that they may otherwise have. So I'm not too concerned about the Warriors' attack with that in mind. As I said, you had a slightly off night from Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, and then you had such a focus on defensive prowess, effort, and attitude, as well as the selections of players who are more suited to that. Forced selections, because Parsi was out. Jazz Tavanga left the field. So these forced selections dictated a certain style of play, and that just takes a little bit away from the attack. But as Warriors fans, people should be really excited about that performance because the one thing that everyone wants to see is attitude and effort and intensity. I've been on this journey of sussing out how NRL teams rise with their energy and then fall away with their energy because it's near impossible to maintain a super duper energy level in the NRL weekly because you're going to come up against some very, what do we have this week? The Titans beat the Seagulls. Knights beat the Roosters. A couple of injuries had a role there. Cowboys beat the Raiders. Panthers came up to beat the Eels. You catch my drift here? The NRL is a brutal competition. If you're off by 5-10%, you're going to lose the game because you're probably going to come up against a team that's going to be on that week, that they're going to be 100%. They're going to be ready. And maintaining that 100% effort, 10 out of 10, however you want to portray it, is very difficult, near impossible in the NRL because it's just such a physical, demanding competition. And so the Warriors came out with a certain level of intensity and effort against the Dragons, which was good. They backed it up against the Panthers, blew away the Panthers simply by showing up in the first half with a certain level of aggression and intent, and then the Panthers crumbled under that weight. So I was kind of maybe expecting a bit of a dip from the Warriors against the Broncos. There wasn't a dip. It was just that everything was focused into the defensive aspect of the game and the grind set for set and setting things up for the attack, that it was the attack that which saw a bit of an energy dip. So there was a slight energy dip, there was a slight dip in intensity, but it wasn't in how the Warriors... the Warriors were fantastic defensively. They were fantastic in terms of just getting into a grind with the Brisbane Broncos team. So to have a high level of effort and intensity in that aspect of Warriors footy is a very good sign. So keep that in mind as we move forward. Warriors reserve grade. We had a couple of interesting positional moves here. Hayes Perham was playing at centre. He had 14 runs for 102 metres, which is pretty good. And he had 3 missed tackles out of 19. 86.4% tackle efficiency. So fairly solid effort from Hayes Perham there at centre. He was playing centre, Paul Turner was playing at fullback. And that means that the Warriors had Paul Turner Tyler Slade, Philip Makatoa, and Sean Mullaney. So they had 4 players from their Jersey Flegg team playing in reserve grade. Warriors, Adam Kieran missed 6 tackles, Chanel Harris-Tavita missed 5 tackles. So if those dudes are missing that many tackles in reserve grade, yeah, that's not a good sign. We also had Chris Sate, 20 runs, 237 metres, 82 post-contact metres. That is monstrous from Chris Sate. And it was a rough night for Lingy Sao. Lingy Sao is a fringe NRL player who I really enjoyed the impact of Lingy Sao against the Dragons and then against the Panthers. But for a fringe NRL player to make the mistakes Lingy Sao did in such a tight game, in such a set-for-set game, he conceded 2 penalties and then he got whacked by Anthony Milford on the try line to concede a try. It's rough for Lingy Sao, especially when you've got Chris Sate coming in with, a 20-run, 237-metre performance against Blacktown Worker Seagulls. Lingy Sao does have a bit of a versatility string to his bow. He can play edge, he can play middle. He loves an offload, he's good with the footy. So it just depends if, Stephen Kearney might be more reactionary and be like, nah, fuck off Lingy Sao, you fucked it up for us. Or he might have faith in Lingy Sao to roll out a good performance. You will have Ignatius Parsi coming back, so that could be a factor for the Warriors if you bring Ignatius Parsi back at some stage whenever he's ready, and he just comes in for Lingy Sao, and then Adam Blair goes back to the bench, and your bench is Bunty Afoa, Jazz Tavanga, Adam Blair, and Carl Lawton. So, yeah, that's kind of what you expect. I think that's the thing about this for Lingy Sao is he had 2 games of NRL footy, did really well, and then 3rd game, real tough game against the Brisbane Broncos, high energy, you're going to be under fatigued, you're going to be fucked, to be honest, and Lingy Sao has to play a few more minutes because Jazz Tafanga's injured, he's fatigued, he's tired. Been a pretty intense couple of weeks for Lingy Sao, concedes a few penalties, poor effort in defence, bang, game over, Broncos win. Kind of boils down to that for the Warriors, so interesting to see what happens with Lingy Sao there. Sam Lasone, 15 runs, 139 metres for Sam Lasone. Not a crazy good performance. Again, if you're looking at runs and run metres, yeah, it's okay, but for Sam Lasone, you want him getting closer to the 10 metre per run mark. That is the benchmark, because other guys are doing it. Chris Sate did it on 20 runs. Philip Makatoa did it off the bench, 11 runs, 114 metres. Another Jersey Flegg dude, keep an eye on Philip Makatoa. So all these dudes, other dudes are doing it. Sam Lasone not quite doing it. Not quite doing it, bro. Gerard Beale. Interesting little numbers there from Gerard Beale. Highly effective, 17 runs, 162 metres. Couple of tacky passes, yeah, whatever. Who cares? Let's move on. No Flegg footy this weekend. And we had plenty of upsets, and the table and the Warriors are now sitting 12th on 8 points. The 2 teams have 8 points, the Warriors and the Dragons, and then Cowboys 11th, Tigers 10th, Broncos 9th, Eels 8th. They all have 10 points. So the Warriors are still there. They're still there on the fringes of the top 8. They just need to stack up a couple of wins during this Origin period to get deeper into the top 8. The Warriors are 12th on 8 points. Knights are 4th on 12 points. So only 4 points separates 13th to 4th. So it's not too crazy up in that NRL ladder thing. Very congested. So you only need a couple of good wins to get in the mix. With regards to how this round played out, the Knights are on a bit of a run at the moment, aren't they? That was a fantastic effort against the Roosters, but you've got these teams that are just like Roosters. No Cooper Cronk, Luke Keary goes out. So, of course, Knights at home, hostile environment. It was great to see a lovely crowd at the Newcastle. Knights probably going to win that game when the Roosters are, battling for halves. So don't get too crazy about the Roosters. Don't get too crazy about the Knights. Rabbitohs, very strong against the West Tigers. I continue to be fairly impressed with the Melbourne Storm. No one's really talking about the Melbourne Storm. They just went about their business, 28 points to 6 over the Bulldogs. Jerome Hughes came back into fullback. And I just want to check Jerome Hughes' numbers because, we are Kiwi NRL. We're about the Kiwi NRL, Kazis, Usos, and Dokos. Anyone who played their junior footy in Aotearoa or has Aotearoa connections, we're talking about them. High focus on them. And that means Jerome Hughes from Wellington. Coming back, straight back into fullback. He's dynamic, man. He's fast. He's skillful. 13 runs, 122 metres. So a bit of a, not a huge game from Jerome Hughes, but big enough to keep Ryan Pappenhausen, who was great at fullback in the weeks that Jerome Hughes was out. Ryan Pappenhausen came in and played as a middle forward for the Melbourne Storm. And you got Brandon Smith playing as a middle forward, and then you also have Ryan Pappenhausen playing as a middle forward. That's some funky Craig Bellamy coaching. If you want to talk about Craig Bellamy coaching, you're talking about those sorts of moves where he's got these guys he needs to have in his top 17, and he has full confidence that they're going to do a good job in the middle of the field. Nelson Asofa-Solomona, 17 runs, 150 metres. Jesse Bromwich, 20 runs, 183 metres. That's why you can play the other guys. And when you've got Brandon Smith, 7 runs, 78 metres, well over 10 metres per run from Brandon Smith. He tackles hard, he works hard. You got all your bases covered. Timely big game from Nelson Asofa-Solomona, considering that he's trying to get into Aotearoa Kiwi selection. And another timely big game, I think. Let me just double check here. We had the Gold Coast Titans giving up over Manly Seagulls. And I wrote about Tonga's predicted squad. So you can probably just go read about that. I won't talk too much about that here. Moeaki Fotuaika starting at prop, 57 minutes, 21 runs, 270 metres. 91 post-contact metres. Right. Fotuaika. He should be in this Tongan squad. He should be in the Tongan squad. Just kind of depends. You got Joe Ofo-Hingawe, who may be selected for Queensland by the time you hear this, so whether he's involved or not for Tonga will be interesting. For Fotuaika, you got Tevita Totola with the South Sydney Rabbitohs, who played against Samoa last year, so whether Tongan coach Christian Wolf goes for Totola or Fotuaika will be very interesting. Plenty of little nuances, wrinkles to this Tongan squad to watch out for. You got Ata Hingano's playing for Mounties, so he's not playing NRL footy. And then who's going to partner Ata Hingano in the halves? Tuilala is over in England, and there's no one else really. No one else playing halves for Tonga. We'll all find out over the coming week or so. Stay tuned. I'm going to be covering all sorts of international rugby league. I'm going to predict the Samoa squad, whoever they might be in action. So we'll predict Samoa squad, Kiwi squad, whoever else. Support the Niche Cast. All platforms, anywhere you see it, anywhere you get it. Kia kaha e tu. Enjoy the study all week. Peace and love to you all.